Welcome. This is Astrology Insight Now, a weekly forecast program with astrology and other ways to help you make the most of your week and to heighten confidence for daily life. It's run by Pamela Cuccinell, that's me, the astrologer, and I invite you to find out more about my work at insightoasis.com. I look forward to your joining us every week. Please share with your friends, and here we go. Okay, so I don't know about you, but I'm starting to get really jazzed. I mean, here we are, we're approaching the second eclipse of the year. We've come off the equinox, the spring equinox, bringing in a lot of light potential. And hopefully everyone had a good weekend using that sort of deep creative, what do I want to start energy of the Capricorn moon. And the moon goes void, of course, at 11:01 a.m. The times I give are Eastern time, so you'll need to adjust depending on where you live. But this early morning into that point in time is a wonderful time to make sure that you've got the things in place that you want to map out for the week, because this next few days are when we are completing the lunar cycle, waning moon cycle, before that new moon, which is a solar eclipse, the end of the week. And I will talk about that very soon. But basically, many of us may feel an intensification of energy at this point in time. And there's a lot, as we know, going on in the news, in the world. Many people are feeling that things are precarious. Some people are very excited because they believe that great changes are coming in. And optimist that I am, in spite of indications that may point otherwise, I also have great hope that great things are coming in. But what that requires is very dynamic change. And okay, we've been seeing that certainly in the United States. There are huge sweeping changes that are occurring. And the reality of those changes are, if the majority of people are on board with them, they are going to sweep in an unprecedented reality for the United States, which already is the case, one could argue. But the piece that has not been resolved and won't be, as long as we're going through these big energetic shifts, is what do those changes actually lead to? And so what we're seeing, depending on what you like to watch or look at, is we are seeing a lot of push of big changes that are coming in, and the United States being the big lumbering bear it is, of course, as it's dictating or creating change, especially ones that have financial or military aspect, which one could argue is both, then we're seeing how that affects many places in the world. So what is super important, as I emphasize as we go forward, especially as Neptune moves into Aries the end of the week, but with this solar eclipse that sort of lights it all up, is it's super important to align yourself with communication, allies, and people who are supportive of what you would like your community and the world to be. Because the attitude of it's just my little house, my little home, my little world. That does not fit for the Pluto in Aquarius frame, which we will be living under for the next couple of decades. So it's super important to make decisions, find your community. And the idea of holing up and just being in an individual camp, that just isn't going to bode well going forward. So as we see nations making decisions of just isolationism, nationalism, this is not sustainable frames. So what is happening on the morning of Monday is, where is your alignment? Who are your community? Where do you find beacons of hope? Again, super important, because it's easy to feel disempowered, especially when there's so much, as they say, flooding the zone to give people a sense of powerlessness. And not disempowered, not with the Aquarian energy, because yes, there are, as I've talked about, there's a shadow side to every sign, every planetary energy. And one of the shadow signs of Aquarius is thinking everything would be wonderful if people did things my way. Well, what is required is creating a quilt, a community of people who take individual responsibility for how things occur and have respect. Oh God, huge word, respect for one another. The mandate of Aquarius is freedom. The mandate. And so as we see things clamping down and people having less rights, this is not sustainable for how things are going to bubble up and go forward. So the moon goes for it, of course, at 11:01 a.m. Eastern Time, as I said, and then it enters Aquarius at 11:25 a.m. So that doesn't mean everything's wonderful because the moon's in Aquarius, because what's happening is we're still having that tension of Uranus in late degree Taurus. And even when Uranus goes into Gemini, which I am writing about now, such interesting times. That's going to really blow out how people feel and where they're going. You know, no more deer in the headlights, just sort of driving forward with what they want to make happen. So the tension over the next couple of days, Moon in Aquarius square Uranus in Taurus, that will be the final aspect as the moon travels. But right now, on Monday, we have a good day. We actually have a good day to continue to incubate those ideas, make those connections, especially on Monday and Tuesday, if there's community and people you are interfacing with who are activating, what they want to make happen. And I'm not just talking about politically or sociologically, although those are huge. I'm also talking about what's happening in your work life, in your family life, in your love life. All these things require an emphasis on deeper communication, fleshing out. And this is kind of the surprise attack that's happening for Well, especially perhaps anyone with strong fixed signs in their horoscope. Aquarius, Taurus, Scorpio, Leo in early degrees, like people born early in those signs, because we are, and I say we because I very much am feeling this, we are feeling the agitation that's happening with Pluto coming in and saying, okay, you can hold on as tightly as you want, but things are changing and you have no control over how they change. The piece of what we can have, quote, control over is when we step in and say, okay, I admit I don't know how to do this. This is not working the way I had intended. I'm aging. My body isn't what it used to be. Perhaps my marriage isn't what it used to be. Perhaps my aloneness isn't fitting me anymore. My job, perhaps. And I'm not just talking about me personally. I'm talking about all these ways that Pluto can have an effect when it comes through via transit. And it can be many things that just are not working or what they used to be anymore. So the next couple of days really invites us, especially if we're feeling this, and even if we're not feeling this personally. And one thing I'm starting to write about are people in the news, people who are standouts that we're seeing are really affected by some of these transits that are occurring, because the microcosm is really determining the macrocosm. It's, as I write about people like Bernie Sanders, Donald Trump, Elon Musk, AOC, I'm writing about how these people are so energized and activated at this point in time. And that we can either energetically be feeling some effects of this because whatever's going on, and I was just talking about people in the US, believe me, there's plenty of other people I'll be writing about as well. But I realized that as I've been talking about the big movements, sometimes it's easier to grasp, especially with these people who are so pivotal at this point in time, where historically, ideally we'll have a history, we can look back and say, wow, look at what was going on then. And so astrology can really show us why these people are so energized or at the forefront or determining things that are having an effect and can be cataclysmic, but also can be catalysts for what happens next and who gets energized next. So I'm actually getting very excited because I'm starting to see how this can all really shift so dynamically in the next 6 months, year. And these eclipses are triggering, especially, okay, we've got the one coming up the end of this week, but then we've got another duo in September. And those are really catapulting us, one might say, into 2026, which is another huge dynamic year. So what we do individually on Monday, Tuesday, is we look at, okay, so where is the conversation? Where does it have to be? How can we move it? And some of us may not realize that what we're initiating or engaging in is going to have certain reactions. So prepare for the reactions. You may not know what they are, because, again, I'm seeing Uranus action, and that is always the unexpected, the surprise. But if you are feeling activated to start tweaking something, engaging, finishing up something that needs to be completed, then do it, but prepare yourself for whatever may occur next so that you can work with it and ideally take it to a place that massages out the difficulties or the reactivity and get you to a place where it's smoother or you're able to at least negotiate. And so what happens is the moon goes void, of course, at 6:15 a.m. early Wednesday morning, and then it enters Pisces at 3:31 p.m. So basically we have most of the working day for people, certainly Eastern time, who do 9 to 5 stuff. Most of the working day, the moon is void of course. So void of course in the sign of Aquarius, best to work in things already in motion. Don't start anything new. Clear up, finish up, clean out, prepare. And this is actually really nicely constructed because it's prepping us for the new moon that happens on Saturday. So these next couple of days, once the moon enters Pisces at 3:31 p.m. Eastern Time, they give us an invitation to really deepen into energy. And I read a lot, and I look at a lot of different news sources and also podcasts and people who I don't necessarily agree with or feel comfortable with, who challenge my belief system. And so as I get exposed to that information, it also enables me to do a few things. One is to sink into a sense of compassion and understanding, which isn't always easy at all. And sometimes there's no way I can do it. But I at least get into a place where I work on knowing that if someone is so heightened in a certain way that I have no real understanding or ability to access, then I know that it is such a place of what I would call a damaged psyche, which would probably get that person or those people really upset that I even say that. But a sense of living in a world that is so angry and distorted that life is not really enjoyable. And so on Wednesday evening through Friday in the mid-afternoon, well, I'll get there, but on Wednesday evening, we may, because of a picture in the sky with Mars and Chiron, we may encounter some things that cause us a lot of reactivity or pain or anger or frustration or feeling as though we're so wounded there's no way we can fight the Goliath. And it's okay to observe that. But as we get into the later evening, then I really suggest, especially if that came up for you, is to do something very healing and restorative. Watch a movie that always soothes you, listen to music, take a bath, walk in nature, ask for hugs. Do the things that really allow you a sense of, I am heard, I am witnessed, I am seen, even if the people who can do that for you are not available. Do it for yourself. answer yourself, recognize and validate yourself. And deep, deep healing and huge creativity can come in. Because one thing that happens when we're so hit with and really a lot of the messages now that certainly are on the internet or the news or the messaging is about be afraid, there's not enough, you're disempowered. And so with that sort of beating down energy, we lose our creativity. We lose our ability to find our way back. And many of us are reacting to certain things going on, especially the endless bullying and messaging, in ways that bring up a lot of historical trauma. And as I've been finding my way through this, because personally I have, not to go too into it, but I certainly have not only generational trauma, but childhood trauma, huge, that when I think about how I found my way out, it was quietly drawing. I was a young artist. I spent a lot of time drawing. And I created alternate realities, stories, places I would go. And so, not that we want to live in a fantasy world, but believe me, there are times when it's very appealing. But the idea of allowing in the creative place connects us with the greater octave of love and the more restorative community. So look around you if you're feeling particularly isolated or lost or sad on especially Wednesday afternoon, evening, and where can you make these connections? Some of us, we're more isolated. Some of us, it's through the internet, meetup groups, communities, theater, ways that you come in to meeting people who want to work with clay, paint, sing, even become socially active. There are all kinds of ways to stimulate creative energy, and that is so dynamic on Wednesday evening, Thursday, when Venus enters the sign of Pisces, and then on Friday. And Friday, there's this really, Friday's a terrific, juicy day where we can really meet those people who are highly supportive and we're feeling that great connectivity to. And another way to do this is deepen into meditation, ways that you can feel that sense of promise around you. And the really juicy period runs from early mornings through when the moon goes void, of course, at 4:30 p.m. Eastern Time. This is just a super time to really repair things, projects that you couldn't quite figure out, or ways that, things that you might need to edit. Remember, Venus, Mercury retrograde. So these are ways we can really invite in. How do we use this energy to reevaluate, reconsider, go into it in ways that we hadn't really thought about in the clarity that we can see it now. And that really starts to make huge differences in how we're going to come to this eclipse. So here's the thing. After that moon goes void, of course, at 4:30 p.m., the moon enters Aries at 4:36. Now, this is fire moon cardinal energy after mutable water, and it is, listen to me, look at this. It's loud, and it's coming in to that solar eclipse. And so our usual dark of moon time, which is what I was really encouraging us all to do when the moon was in Pisces, the usual dark of moon is already getting really stimulated and saying, hey, the moon is about to be a new moon, which hits exactly at 6:58 a.m. on Saturday the 29th Eastern Time. So when that moon enters Aries, it's getting very loud with the Mercury retrograde, louder, with feeling the emphasis from Pluto and Aquarius, and the tension is really building. Now, this eclipse is part of a Saurus cycle, and I've written about it on Spot On Astrology, which I've written a whole piece about March and what to look for. But the thing about this eclipse is that historically, it's a very active eclipse, certainly. It stimulates a lot energetically, a lot of movement. And we have to pay attention if we're feeling a real thrust to move very fast. So it conjures up a lot of physical energy, and it can be terrific if you're really pumped and primed for it. You're somebody who works out, you're an athlete, you know what you're doing, and you're really pushing for success. The important piece here, especially because this new moon is at 9 Aries 0 minutes, is that you want to be crystal clear that you are asserting yourself with desire, with passion, with super, super important, with integrity, with a sense of benevolence, with a sense of, I want to bring this to fruition. Anger, frustration, personal vengeance, these are things that can boomerang, and if they don't hurt the agent of action directly, they will have a residual effect that is negative. And so it's a new moon. We want to initiate things that are dynamic. And the other thing about this week is that when that moon goes void, of course, at 5:18 a.m. on Sunday the 30th, it is void until 4:16 p.m. So there can be a lot of spinning of this residual energy if it wasn't exercised appropriately. So perhaps you've heard the buildup here. I was suggesting a lot of creative connectivity over the period when the moon was in the sign of Pisces, Wednesday through Friday afternoon. Once it enters Aries, unless we've done the appropriate prep work, especially if someone is reeling with a great sense of anger, frustration, vengefulness, it's not going to work out well how they put their energy in that solar eclipse. And always with an eclipse, it's not ideal to start anything at the eclipse, especially one that's so volatile. we want to wait until things settle down and then move into initiation when we have good days to do that. So when that void of course period happens on Sunday, that's when Neptune enters Aries at 8 a.m. Eastern Time on Sunday the 30th. So it's almost covert. It's coming in and it's saying, okay, we're switching things. Now Neptune's in the sign of Aries. And that's a whole piece in itself, which I've written about, and I invite you to read. But I will close talking about the last thing when Moon enters Taurus at 4:16 p.m. And so that brings in an evening where communication can be really spectacular. Chewing on things, really considering, working and going over what was learned over the past few days, what might have come in and flashed a light for you with that eclipse. Because sometimes eclipses, the door opens, the door closes. What did you see? What was revealed? What did you feel? And when you harness that realization, then you can plan how to put it into action that's productive. And one more thing, this Saros cycle, the last time it occurred was 2007. So if that year stands out for you in any way, this is an echo of that kind of energetic spark that was revealed. You have been listening to Astrology Insight Now. Please share with your friends, and if you'd like to make a donation, you can do so at astrologyinsightnow.com. Have a stellar week, and we hope to see you next time.